Filtering a portal using a global field requires two steps. The first step is to change the formula because it's just the formula from the build invoices. So we'll go into layout mode. We'll double click on the portal, specify, and it's really simple. We just say, hey, this should equal customers X status. Simple little change. We'll go back to browse mode and see how it looks. Now if I change this to paid, you'd expect this to show a different invoice, and it doesn't unless you come up here and refresh the window. You can see now it says paid here and it's showing the different invoice. I switch it back to build, it doesn't change until I refresh it. And that's the way that filter portals work. You want them to be quick and agile. And if it had to look through all these relationships and see what was going on and look at every single table occurrence and every hop away, that could get quite extensive. You can imagine if you look inside of the relationship graph, imagine this being much more complicated with hundreds of table occurrences. Everything that was connected would have to look at in order to determine if it was updated. So in order for speed to be the main factor here, it doesn't update everything, but we can make it update everything when we want to. So you can force that. It may not do it automatically, but you can force it to happen. And so we can force this through a script step, this exact script step here. So the way we're going to do that is write ourselves a script. Now we're in the script workspace and we have a new script already. We're just going to use that. And there is a script step called refresh window. And in the options, there is one called flush cache joined results. That means go ahead and take whatever you have in memory and update it on the hard drive. Move it from memory into the hard drive. It updates everything. Everything refreshes. The whole window refreshes, not just the relationships. And that should do it right there. So we'll save it. Now, how do we get it to run? We don't want to click a button. That would be inconvenient. So what we're going to use is what's called a script trigger. It doesn't require you to have a button like you see here. It just simply requires you to go into Format and set Script Triggers. And there's many script triggers you can run on Object Enter. Usually when your cursor goes into a field, whether you click into it or tab into it. When you type a key inside of a field typically. When you modify an object, and now that's different than a keystroke, right? Think about it. You could modify it many different ways, such as pasting. That wouldn't be a keystroke. On Object Validate, well, that happens on exit of the field, and it happens kind of like on Object Save and Object Exit. They're kind of similar, but they're a little bit different. They happen at a different time. For instance, you could exit a field, but not save it because you didn't make a change. Same with Validate. It requires a change to validate. So you could tab through all the fields, and the only one that would run would be on Object Exit. So you've got to learn the differences between these, and there's several more here. What we're going to use on this one is on Object Save because we don't want it to go ahead and run the script until it's saved. And I forgot to change the name, so we're going to come in here once we set this up. You can see the little icon showing it's got a script trigger on it. But I'm going to go into Script Workspace and give this a better name. Call it Refresh. That's better for me. And then we'll go into Browse mode. And you'll see now, as soon as we change it, it's going to update automatically. And you'll see the invoices show up in there that should be showing up there. We don't have to do anything. And of course, the script's running in the background. It just happens as soon as we save the value in there. Now, you don't necessarily have to refresh everything. We can refresh just the portal and make this a little bit more precise. Might make it a little bit faster. It may not make a difference in this exact implementation, but it's always better to be more efficient. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to name our portal. It's really easy to do. You can name any object you want. We're going to come over here to our position, and you can see there's a place to put a name in here. I'm going to call it Filtered Portal. And I'll copy that name to the clipboard because we're going to use it in a second. But you can see, though, if I come back in here and click on here, that has no name, but this portal has a name. So I can name anything I want, and that's very useful as far as pointing a script step to where you want it to be. So we're going to take refresh window out, type in refresh again, and you can see we have refresh portal. That's more specific. Just that portal will be refreshed. But in order for it to know what portal it is, you're going to have to give it a name. So this is actually a calculation here. So we can't just put in the words there like we did in the inspector. We actually have to enclose it in quotes, because that will say result in this word. I could have something more complicated that's calculated with all kinds of fields and stuff like that, but most often when you're referring to an object, you don't need something really complicated. Sometimes you do, but in this case we don't. So the result will really be just the highlighted part. The quotes really are just telling you it's static text. That's it. That's just the way a calculation works. So let's see if that works. We'll save that. And if it continues to function, then we know we've made it a little bit more efficient because it's focused just on updating this portal. That looks pretty good. In fact, if we go down to cancel, you see nothing's there, right? So now we've got a filter portal that updates based on the input into a global field. And this is pretty cool, but we're going to take it a couple steps further.